Cannot be excused. Let's just think for a second. How many times, we all know that America has been indeed dumbed down. Does anybody disagree with that? Now, how did this happen? As far back as I can remember, and I'm pretty sure as far back as every single one of you can remember, we've heard the saying that, what can I do? Or, I'm only one person. Or, you can't fight City Hall. Or, my vote doesn't count. Well, maybe that's true. We forgot where we are, huh? But seriously, when we were young, we were taught that it was not a good thing to engage in conversations if they have anything to do with politics or religion. Question is, what makes this world go round? Is politics and beliefs. So, if we're being told not to talk about politics and religion, what type of agenda does that set? That means that we want to stifle the progress of the human mind. They don't want you to move forward. They don't want you to think. Well, just the fact that you're all here shows me that, you don't necessarily subscribe to that particular philosophy, and God bless every single one of you for doing so. Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Give yourselves a round of applause. But the other issue that we have to overcome is this feeling of hopelessness, this feeling of insignificance, this feeling of being intellectually neutered. Because, we all are just one person. And, hey, folks, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. I'm a regular guy, and, for the first, 35 years of my adult life, I didn't give a holly hoot about politics or world events. I was I'm a musician. I'm a musician. Been a musician for most of my life. I was a long-haired, pot-smoking, hippy-dippy rock and roller for years. And yes, I did inhale. I'll be the first one to admit it, and I liked it. Of course, these days I have too much to lose, and besides, I don't like the way it makes me feel these days. It takes away from my ability to think. And that's a very important point. You see, again, we are all just one person. But keep in mind that you don't have to have a sheepskin on the wall, you don't have to have a diploma, you don't have to have some certificate, because, ladies and gentlemen, etch this into your memory banks. You don't have to be a certified, licensed, and registered pyrotechnic expert to have a valid claim of fire. Think about it. And this is why I think the In Plain Sight project has got so many people ticked off, is because I don't show you pictures and tell you what you see. I showed you pictures and asked, hey, what do you see? And that challenges people to think, and of course they don't want you to think. Now, again, you couple these two things together, and that leads us to our next presenter. Because she is only one person. And she's part of a so-called minority. She's black. She's female. But the point is that this person, just like so many of us, understands how important it is to have an opinion and to voice it. And to understand that, no, you don't have to be a certified, licensed, and registered pyrotechnic expert to have a valid claim of fire, especially when it's the Pentagon that's on fire. And so, our next guest, April Gallop, is going to tell you a little bit of a story, a big story. A big story. Now, to this point, she's remained somewhat silent, and she'll probably explain to you why. But now, as more and more people are coming forward, more and more people are recognizing the simple fact that there is a fire, and I don't have to be an expert to tell you this. She is now stepping forward, and what she has to say, you need to hear. So, ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you somewhat of a newcomer to the 9/11 community, and I ask that you all welcome her with open arms, embrace her, cleave unto her, and support her in any way you can. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. April Gallop. Where is she?
He could get his little clap. I was in the other room and I was talking with some people, and I've had a little bit of time to get to know the audience, and that's what I try to do before I determine what kind of speech I'm going to give. And this is such a warm audience to where I feel like everyone is very knowledgeable on a lot of the information as it pertains to 9/11, and I've had an opportunity to look at a lot of the vendors and really see that they really are. Yeah, there's my son. Hi, Elijah. He's truly been an inspiration to me, even at his age. So I feel like a lot of people are pretty much knowledgeable about many of the, as far as the incident go, as it pertains to September 11th. So I'm just going to give you some details about my eyewitness experience. So here I was, a new mom, just had my son 2.5 months prior. I was a happy new mom, and so at that time I was projecting to do different things. My goal at that time was get back in shape, get ready to go to officer school. That was my goal. My projection time was December 2001, so I really didn't have a lot of time to, get rid of that excess, women, you know what I'm talking about. So I didn't have much time, but I was going to do it. I was motivated. I knew I had to get that pay increase, and so that was the way I was going to do it. So I was happy, but I was still torn because I was a new mom, and you know how it is. You just have your kid. You want to be careful who your child is with, and things of that nature. So I wanted to check out the Pentagon daycare and make sure that, they really were going to do the things that they said they were going to do, and that he really was going to be in good care before I started. So I returned to work September 11, 2001. I started my morning. What a way to say, welcome back. So I start my morning with chai tea. That's my thing. I love chai tea. It's really good, especially mixed with milk. And so I'm still torn, like, oh, God, here's my first day. And I thought my only worry was going to be starting back at work. So I make my ride to the Pentagon. I get a phone call on my cell phone. Okay, April, we need you to go ahead and come on into the office, and then you can take Elijah to the daycare later. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get my son cleared, to get back there to do what you want me to do? So, of course, subordinate. Well, can I make a recommendation? How about I take him to the daycare first and then come back and do what it is that you want me to do? But again, I was a subordinate, so I had to do as I'm told to do. And I was told, no, how about you get him back here and you do what we want you to do, then you take him to the daycare. And I'm like, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, he's not going to get cleared to get back there, so I'm going to get him to take him to the daycare anyway, so I'm just going to look like I'm following what I'm told to do. So I go to the security station. I'm like, well, they told me I have to bring my son back here. I already know he's not going to get cleared, but I want to make sure I come to you first so you can call them and tell them. So I'm thinking he's going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. We can't clear him to get back here. On that particular day, no. Go ahead on back there. We went through in the shortest amount of time ever in getting through to the Pentagon. So that automatically sent up some red flags to me because I was thinking, like, why in the world and how? I'm thinking about those things, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead. So I move forward. I get to the desk, My supervisor tells me I'm going to go to a meeting. When I get back, you and I are going to talk. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to a meeting. You have me come back here so you can go to a meeting. Okay, fine, no problem. So I take my son's stroller. I put it beside the desk. I go to touch the computer button, to turn on the computer. Boom! That's exactly how it happened. There was no extra additional things. It was just like that. I'd taken my son, put his stroller beside my desk. I went to turn on the computer. Boom. And at that moment, our life was completely changed on that particular day. Now, here's what I feel like the details that you need to know. When I came to, of course, I was disoriented. I didn't know what had happened, what was going on. I was covered in debris from the back of my neck all the way down to my body. So the only thing that was out was my arms and my head. I shake my head, like, what is going on? What happened? Then all of a sudden I can hear my son crying. He's crying louder and louder and louder. And I'm sure, moms, you know about this. When our children get in distress, all of a sudden we get that super strength, like, we need to find out what's going on, So he stopped crying, and that's what motivated me to low crawl, or really pull myself out from under the debris, move all the debris, and get from under the debris, because he had stopped crying. So my first thought was, oh my God, I come back to work to lose my child. All types of things are going through my head. And so there was fear there. There was so many emotions going on at one time. And I wish one of the things, when I go back and think about it, I think about one of the things I was feeling was courage. I wasn't feeling courageous at that time. I wish I could say it because I don't know, maybe I feel like you guys would really believe I was a hero. But I really can't say that. I really was very fearful. I was very afraid. And I was very concerned that I'd lost my child on my first day back at work. Regardless of the fact, I was able to get out, and there were a number of things that were going on at that time. There were people who were covered under debris. They were trapped in between the floors saying, help me, save me, screaming. I mean, there were so many things going on at one particular time, and I was split. I had a duty and an obligation, because I was in the military. I had a duty and obligation to help save these people. And then here's my child who now had stopped crying. I'm split, my child, people. So it's very hard. I was reaching under the debris to see if I could reach my child, to see if he was in the immediate area. I couldn't feel him. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to help save some of these people so they can help me find my kid. I couldn't find him. I tried. I was reaching under the debris. I couldn't. So I was able to help a couple of people, and I was saying to myself, help me find my son, help me find my son. And, of course, there was a lot of hysteria, so I don't really blame anybody there because they didn't stop. I mean, they wanted to get out, and I really don't blame them. I really don't. Things were still collapsing on the inside, and you really wasn't comprehending what was going on in your environment, so I didn't blame anybody there. We get to the point where things were collapsing, and my other coworkers, who we still stay in touch with today, were like, we have to go now. We have to go now. But I was thinking I didn't have my son, and at that point, I just wanted to leave with his body. So we get to a big, just pile of debris, and I had one leg over the pile of debris, and they were holding my arm. It was like two people holding the other arm, telling me, come on, pulling me, saying, come on. I'm like, I just got to try just one more time. And I reached down, just sheer chance, no science to it, no method to it. I just reached down and I grabbed my son's onesie. And I pulled the onesie up and I put him over my shoulder, and then they pulled me by the other arm. And then as soon as they pulled me out over that place of debris, that area, more things had collapsed in that area. So it just all happened in time enough for us to really get out. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. But there was no science to it. There was no method to it. There was no strategy, no plan. It just simply happened. Now here's what was key. As we were moving out, I was still able to see pillars that were still holding up the actual area. I mean, not very many. There was some still knocked down. There were still wires. I didn't see any plane debris. I didn't see any airplane seats. I didn't see any metal. I didn't see any baggage. I wasn't covered in jet fuel. I know the people that we helped pulled out under the different floors, I didn't see them covered in any jet fuel. I just didn't see it. And so at the time, after the fact, that's all I was thinking. That's what I didn't see, but I know what I saw. And most of the debris that we were encompassed with, or what we were going through, was pertaining to office things: concrete, books, computers, tables, things of that effect. So we get out on the lawn. As we come out of the actual hole where they claim that's where the plane entered, as I come out, I'm thinking all of a sudden someone had taken a hammer and literally beat me from my head all the way down to my feet, and then I collapsed. There was a gentleman who was helping people as they were coming out. He captured my son as I was going down to the ground. He got a gentleman to help hold Elijah while he moved me to another location on the lawn. Now, I really don't know how they determined rank structure because I had my civilian clothes on, but most of the higher, ranking people who had been affected were already transported out for triage, and we were left on the ground. So the people who were surrounding us was just trying to stop cars to get us to the hospital. But while I was on the lawn, I can't say that I saw a silver piece of a plane part. I didn't see any of that, and that's the only thing that I really feel like I can attest to, because those are things that I didn't see. So with that in mind, I would have never have believed that it was a plane, simply because I didn't see particular things. And based off the Pentagon renovation team, they did a mapping of where everybody was and what was the feet, or where they were located, to determine how far away they were from an impact. And it was just communicated to me we were maybe 35 to 45 feet away from place of impact, more or less 3 or 5 feet. So I feel like, if that's the case, surely there would have been something to support particular things. But again, I stick to, my account and the things that I saw. I don't know what was more horrifying. I don't know if it was actually having the experience or the life, after 9/11. Of course, they wanted to train us, or specifically communicate to us how they wanted us to express what is a story, what happened, and I couldn't do that because these were things that I know I did not see. So I could not support their official story because there were things that I did not see. And I can't say that they specifically communicated that I will not say this and that I will not say that, but I can say, they wanted to ensure that we communicated things as they made the official story. I'm sure many of you are aware of what the official story is, and I just couldn't do that based off, what I saw on the inside. Also, the other inappropriate thing was the fact that my 2.5-month child was cleared to go back there. That was the other number two. They didn't want me to communicate that my son had been injured in that particular location. They felt like that was very inappropriate for me to share with the public. And again, I could not do that because then how would my son get his continuous care? How would he get his treatment? I mean, what was I going to tell the doctors? What was I going to say? How was I going to explain how he got hurt? He had a sunken, when they're newborn babies, their head is already soft, but a large portion of his head had been sunken in. Plus, he was bleeding from the nose. There were just issues. And so it wasn't when I was asking those particular questions I was given specific answers. It was the fact that they didn't make particular statements. What was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to tell the doctors? And if you didn't want to address that, then again, that was, a red flag. And that's a brief, overall synopsis of my experience. And I didn't know if the crowd really had particular questions, and I want to let you know that I'm here to answer whatever questions you may have as it pertains to the inside of the Pentagon. Sir, in the pink shirt. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we can't do questions. One of the things I know that you're probably concerned about. In reception and integration at the Pentagon, we're told that this is one of the safest buildings in all of the United States of America. As part of your reception and integration, you're given a tour of the Pentagon. You're told particular things about the Pentagon. So I'm believing I'm working in one of the safest buildings in all of the United States of America. But on that particular day, there was no alarms, there was no alerts, and there was no warnings. Now, backstepping, while I worked at the Pentagon, they had drills so often that it became very annoying. It's like a maze in there, and when you have to get a document to one place in the building to the other end of the building, and you have a very short period of time to do it, and then there's, some type of training or some type of alert or some kind of practice drill, and you had to stop to participate in that drill, yes, it becomes very annoying. So here we have this particular day, and there was no alarms, no warning, and I just asked myself, what is the probability on that particular day, no alarms, no alerts, no nothing on that one particular day? Now, what did work was the doors inside the building that trapped other people in and they couldn't get out. Those doors worked, and that's why some people were just pretty much burned to death. So we have to really look at these things and not question it as a sense of being unpatriotic, but that's enough to raise concerns too. And then when you look at that building, there are certain things that's not supposed to even come within a certain radius of the Pentagon without some type of alert or some type of warning. But this object that they claim to say was a plane was able to not only get in that radius, but also able to even touch the Pentagon lawn and hit the building. That really blows my mind based off the money that goes into surveillance and that goes into security measurements and how, you know, this particular day absolutely nothing was working. Because trust me, if I got a warning, I would have been willing to jump out of a window to get out of that building on that particular day to save my kid. So, you know, those things cause a lot of questions and a lot of concerns for me, and it put me on this journey to get to the truth, but not only that, to bring forth justice. And I think it's great, you know, what a lot of people are doing to help perpetuate us to get to this point, because it is very necessary. And again, I will be here, so if you can't ask the questions now, I will be here available, walking around, you know, here and there. To and fro to, if you have questions that you may want to ask me and pull me to the side. But I know that is a big issue. Was there any alerts or any warnings? And there were none whatsoever. And it's hard to even believe, considering the World Trade Center had already been attacked. And they have a room where they watch what's going on all around the world in different time zones and in different countries. And they know that the World Trade Center has been attacked, and then they don't even say, hey, everybody, we need to get up on arms or something, do something. The probability of them not doing that, considering the level of security they have and capabilities they have, what is the probability? So I had put out this task. I said, if someone could give me what is the probability of nothing working on one particular day, I would do one thing that they would ask me, as long as it wasn't unlawful, as long as it wasn't distasteful, and as long as it was something that was reasonable that we all could have come to agree with. And to this day, no one has been able to give me what is the probability of nothing actually working on that day. Again, I was selected. The Pentagon selects people from all walks of the life. I was selected from the military. I was in Heidelberg, Germany, and I was selected from the hospital. And so I had a very different perception of military, the country, everything. I had such a different perception until, you know, after that particular day. And I really wasn't one to question particular things until that particular day happened. I come from a military family. Our family and our generations in our family have served our country. We believe in serving God, country, and man. And I still believe that, but I don't believe in particular things as far as misusing the military or perpetuating lies to, again, misuse the military. But I still believe that we have a duty to do particular things. So it was very disappointing to have the experience and then to live the life after 9/11. And I hope my personal testimony or my personal experience will help answer many of the questions that some of you may have been having regarding the Pentagon. I know you're very familiar with the World Trade Center, so I hope, you know, my eyewitness account will help you in some kind of way.
Can you give us more detail on the instructions you received afterwards as to what you could and could not say, and who gave those instructions to you, what department they were from?
Okay.
A couple questions. Go ahead and do that first.
Okay.
Repeat the question.
Repeat the question if you got it.
Okay. That's like a twofold question.
The microphone over there, Mr. Gunderson. You can use that mic right there.
Okay, so he's going to use the mic. Okay. Okay. Okay, wait, right. Okay. I got you.
That's Ted Gunderson, the former head of FBI Los Angeles, is an investigator. He wants to get to the bottom of it for all of you. I'm going to ask the question again, please, Ted, for everybody.
Okay. Can you give us
more details.
No, it's a shotgun mic.
It's a shotgun mic,
Just
okay.
stand right there.
I'm familiar with shotguns, but I've never had anything to do with a shotgun mic, okay. Can you give us more details about... Can you give us...
Oh, no, that mic doesn't cover you guys. It only covers our tape.
Just yell.
Right.
There we go.
That's okay.
Let me give you a hug.
Okay.
Can you give us more details as to afterwards? Who talked to you, who they were, what rank, what department, and the instructions that were given to you as what you could and could not say, rather than tell it like it is?
Okay. That was done in 2 phases. When you're part of the military, even though I was selected for an assignment at Department of Defense, I was still assigned to the military. So when I was transported to the hospital, I'm still government property. So the military has a right to take you from any civilian hospital to take you to a military hospital. So what happened was they sent one person from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and their goal was to come in and find all the military people to give proper accounting so they wouldn't be counted absent without leave. Well, when they came to the triage area where I was located, they meaning Department of Army representative, and he was a captain sort, and I really don't know if I can say his name or what kind of implications that would be, but he wanted to know what I thought happened, and I'm like, what am I supposed to think? Well, I mean, what was I supposed to think? I mean, I was on the inside. I didn't know what I was supposed to think. So there he began to explain to me, this is what happened. And so I said, well, I don't know that that's what happened on the outside because I wasn't on the outside. And he's like, what did you see? I told him what I saw. And then he proceeded to ask me certain questions. Well, did I see certain things? And I said, no, I didn't see those things, and I'm not going to say that I saw those things. And then it was, I'm going to leave you with this. This is what it was. This is what you saw. And this is what you're going to say you're going to saw. And we'll be back to transport you to Walter Reed. Well, they never came back to transport me to Walter Reed. We were actually left there and was left in a triage room and was never transported to Walter Reed. Now, once you get hurt, you go through what is called a medical evaluation board process. And so they had already, my second talk about what I from Department of Defense Public Affairs Office, where they said, well, we're gonna represent you, and here's what you're going to say, and this is why you're going to say what you're going to say. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that if it was actually things that I saw. And so I said, well, I can't say particular things because those are not things that I saw. So those are things that I could not say. Now, at the time when I was doing it as a sense of, I didn't see that. I wasn't thinking about how this could all affect me later or what this could turn into. I wasn't thinking about it at that time. I was thinking about it in the sense of, well, why would I say that? Because I didn't see that. That's the way I was thinking of it in the time frame. And as I look back, now that they've kept much of my stuff in consistent appeals, I feel like there was a purpose, although they were not very blunt about specifically stating certain things. So those are the 2 times that I was approached, and the period of times that I was approached. It was the first time in the hospital, and then the 2 weeks after I came back to start, after September 24th of 2001, when I had to start my medical evaluation board.
What were you told to say?
Pretty much what they've already made public about the official story. It's already made public.
Could you say specifically what they said?
That it was a plane that hit the building.
What kind of plane? 757?
Not on the microphone. Don't ask him on the phone.
Oh, okay.
In the corner, very far corner. Right in the corner.
I'm sorry if you could, not ignoring you, but could you go follow the thing? Yeah.
I have read and have in my copy, in my possession, a report authored by Barbara Honegger, who I believe is in the room somewhere. Barbara, you want to stand up for a moment? And that report speaks to several important issues, one of which was that all of the clocks in that section of the Pentagon stopped as a consequence of the concussion of the blast at a particular time, which was some minutes before the impact of the plane, cruise missile, or whatever hit the building. The alleged impacts, pointing to 2 separate events, and that whatever hit the Pentagon was possibly designed to conceal the explosion, which happened how many minutes prior, Barbara?
9:31 to 9:32. The official story says that no plane hit until 9:37. The original official story was 9:48. There was a violent event, almost certainly a bomb inside the building at 9:32.
I'd like to address that.
And one more second, Barbara. What is your authority for that?
I just refer you to my papers, the Pentagon Stat papers. Read it by going to HBSquestion911.com. Scroll down.
Barbara, why don't you come over?
Now, I would tell you, after it happened, and I still had my watch when I took home, I know my watch stopped at 9:30. So it stopped at 9:30, my watch. Now, I don't know what that implies to the whole scheme of things, but I know the watch that I had on stopped at 9:30.
Barbara, would that be consistent with your...
Absolutely. Bomb inside the building at 9:30.
What time was the impact of whatever hit the Pentagon?
If anything hit the Pentagon, the official story first was that it was at 9:48, and they kept coming down, and to this day, they won't go a minute earlier than 9:37.
And would you repeat that again? What time did your watch stop?
The watch that I had on stopped at 9:30.
Thank you very much.
It was stopped
now,
at 9:30.
Can I ask...
One moment. Just
wait a minute.
I wanted to mention that after Dylan and Jason and Corey speak, and they're going to be speaking in a little while, I will be showing some video clips from this footage. And it just so happens that one of the pieces of footage was taken of the debris, and there's a close-up of one of the clocks that fell off the wall. The time is 9:31.
Thank you very much.
Now, the floor I was located, I was on the first floor, the E-ring, the 5th corridor, 1 Echo 517. So I don't even want to get into it, but the way that they have the official path, a lot of it really doesn't add up based off where we were located.
Okay, now, where you were working, was that in or near the accounting section of the Pentagon?
It was near. It was near the accounting section.
Now, Barbara, would you like to talk about the accounting section of the Pentagon? All right. Anyways, that's
Hold on,
it.
sir. No more question answers, okay? Please sit down. This is a speech by a respected lady. We're not going to have someone off camera, as much as I respect her, because everybody on back cannot see it, as well as people on the TV. So let her finish up her thing. We're going to get back to our program. There's only 2 questions somebody asked, and I asked her nicely in writing, which is, if you could tell us what ring of Pentagon were you at and what floor were you on?
Okay, I was on the first floor, the E-ring, 5th corridor. That's where I was located. And again, Pentagon renovations team said it was maybe 35 to 45 feet away from place of impact, give or take 3 or a couple more feet. And let's see what happened afterwards. The E-ring, the actual E-ring, outside the E-ring. So that's where we were located. And the other question here on the sheet says what happened afterwards. Again, there was an official story, and again, life afterwards really has not, it's been just as traumatizing as having the experience. And as I look back, I believe it had a lot to do with what, I didn't say. I saved the email regarding a news reporter who shared with me that the Pentagon particularly told them not to interview me. And she didn't do the interview because she was concerned about them not being able to get stories from the Pentagon. And where she failed was she actually sent that to me in an email. So to me, you're concerned about me talking or interviews, but you really weren't concerned about, our health and welfare or, us rebuilding our lives after such a horrific event. And so I say that email in the event there's any saying, no, we didn't say that. But she forwarded me the email. It was a Fox News reporter. And she was specifically advised not to do an interview with me and that they would give her a person to interview in my place. And they stated it was because they're concerned about, what would happen during the interview. But yet they continue to keep our stuff in appeals and, doing a lot of nonsense things after the fact. And it just didn't make sense for them to be concerned about a media interview as opposed to, actually the health and welfare of people after a supposedly terrorist attack. So again, those are the questions that were on the sheet. I'm so sorry that the time is up, but I will be here if you have any further questions, and I hope that helps and answer some questions many of you may have had. And I really appreciate being invited here, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me here.
Let me remind all you folks that, golly gosh, she's only one person. We all have jobs to do, and I'll tell you, it takes an awful lot of guts for someone like her to come forward in the position that she's in to say what she's saying. And at this point in time, I'd like to put out a plea. We're going to be taking a break, a very short break. We're going to get back on schedule here. But I want to put out a plea right now because I know that there are people paid to be here. There ain't no doubt about it. We'd have to be absolutely dumbhead stupid to think that there are no agents here. Now, the point here is that I would like to put out a plea to all of you folks that are paid to be here and for all the folks that you work for. I want you to keep in mind that your house of cards is a-coming down. I want you to know that the ground that you stand on is very tenuous indeed, and that if you have any knowledge whatsoever, either direct or indirect, that may lead to what really happened on September 11th, I suggest you go home and you look in the mirror and think long and hard about this. You might want to come forward and volunteer that information before you are found out to be hiding that information. There will be hell to pay. All right, we're gonna take a break. Heyman, did you have something that you want to add to this?
Yes, there's some things that April hasn't told you about, which is what happened afterwards. There's more to it, actually. But she's not an experienced public speaker about having to tell you all the stuff you think about. So she will share those tonight. We're going to have some time when William Rodriguez, the other survivor, national hero, will be speaking tonight. So if you have not gotten tickets for the banquet, we have a few extra available still, because you hear from William Rodriguez and a little bit from April Gallop again as well. So let's take a break. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Something else?
I just want to remind everybody, now I've had so many people coming up to me and asking about this raw Pentagon footage. Now this is not available yet, and we are holding on to it. I remind everybody that the Pentagon footage discs have been copied and they're strategically placed all over the country. Now the point is that we are not going to release this right now because we don't want the powers that be to have time to position themselves as to how to handle this release. So this will come out in about 6 weeks. And when it does, like I said, this one is going to be a slam dunk, folks. And I will be showing some of the clips after Dylan Avery's presentation, along with Jason and Corey. All right, so we won't be able to show much more than 10 or 15 minutes of it, but we will be showing it a little bit later on. Okay?
And tomorrow also the movie Pentagon, which is about what happened at Pentagon on 911, will be shown at luncheon instead of 911 Mysteries, which is scheduled shows. So right now it's 3:22. Let's take a 13-minute break, folks. A 12-minute break. Be back at our seats at